In the meantime, long queues were seen outside petrol stations as Nigerians rushed to fill up their tanks following the announcement by the newly sworn-in Nigerian President Bola Ahmed Tinubu that the subsidy in fuel has come to an end. Some of the residents who went out in search of fuel lament how difficult it is to get the commodity.
Buying is the beginning of the suffering of the masses of this country, because if nothing has been put on check and this announcement was made and no palliative has been made to take you to push on this effect, I think we are going in for a terrible situation, worse than before.
Our new president, in person of Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in his speech yesterday, he said subsidy has been removed. That in 2023 budget, that it was not captured. So that warrant Nigeria to buy in respect of the price, because they know fuel will definitely go up.
Join us to discuss this issue. We're joined by Tolu Aderemi, who's a partner at Perchstone and Graey. So one welcome to you, Tolu, and thanks for joining us at NCP Continental Prime.
Thank you, Gbenga, for having me.
Now, Tolu, it's no more news that the newly sworn-in president announced an end to Nigeria's petrol subsidy regime. We are aware of the fact that it's been said that there was no provision for subsidy in the 2023 budget, which is already in operation. Could you help us understand this better? At what point did the subsidy regime end? As it ended with the president's pronouncement yesterday that subsidy is gone?
All right. Like it is with every presidential statement or pronouncement, it is law. And I think the simple answer to your question is the subsidy regime is gone. But what it really means is it doesn't mean that it ended yesterday when the president made that pronouncement. And I think, all these buyings or panic buyings are completely unnecessary. The 2023 budget provisions made it very clear, or the former Minister of Finance made it very clear that the federal government was only going to be able to fund subsidies until sometimes in June of this year, if I recall. And anything beyond June of this year, then the government would not be able to fund it anymore. And if you look at the date, today is 30th of May. In another 2 days, it will be the 1st of June. So if you ask me, everything seemed to be working well according to the federal government plans. That's one. Two, let me also try and correct an erroneous impression. President Bola Tinubu did not remove subsidy. I think the real person who removed subsidy was President Buhari, the former president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. However, I'm not sure he had the courage to announce it to Nigerians, and maybe he thought the new president had a better courage to be able to do so, perhaps what he would have wanted to do in his first 100 days. But I thought we should all applaud Asiwaju for what he did yesterday. The pains, no doubt, but I think when you start looking at the statistics, I start looking at the consequences of us having subsidies, the Nigerians will appreciate the fact.
And this brings me to my next question, Tolu. Why is it important for Nigeria to remove this fuel subsidy regime? With Nigerians going through tough times, like you acknowledge, and also being an oil-producing country, one would expect that to some sort of benefit to the masses trickling down. So why is it important to do this? And in the long run, would ordinary Nigerians be happy for this policy direction?
So before I tell you why it's important, let me and permit me to just mention one of the errors or the gaps that I saw in that announcement. Everywhere in the world, whenever this sort of action is taken, there's a usually commensurate palliative. And so what I was hoping for when the president removed or announced the discontinuance of subsidy payments, I was also hoping that at the same time, it was going to announce that there's a commensurate increase in the salaries of our federal government workers, and it will encourage the state governments to also do the same. At the same time, it would have voted some money, perhaps for the universities to encourage research and development. That's what is done in every developed economy. And so that cushions the effect of the pain that this short-term pain is inflicting on Nigerians. And to be honest, if we had done that, we will have not a lot of issues as we're seeing today. Now, let's go back to subsidy itself. And maybe if we have time, we can explain what it means. Now, today we buy petrol at 275 naira or 260 naira per liter, whatever it is. The landing cost, and let me take it at a time when we're buying fuel for 65 naira. That example will draw it home very clearly. The landing cost of petrol into Nigeria at the time was 165 naira per liter. And government said, look, regardless of how much you bring it into Nigeria, Nigerians will pay 65 naira for it. Brilliant point. And the reason was because you wanted to cushion the effects or the painful effect on the masses. But guess what? 40% of the poorest populations in Nigeria only use 3% of the petrol we consume every day. I recall Ukonjo-Iweala once said we're using 35 million liters per day. That can be correct. That's about a third of the population.
So where are these figures coming from? Who is consuming this?
That's the point.
Yes.
That's where we're going to. And so effectively, you will see that the subsidies is actually for the benefit of the rich and really not the poor. And so the rich are the ones who have SUVs, and of course, government officials who drive in long convoys. When a government official is driving, count the number of cars in that convoy. All of them by how many government officials?
Tolu, just because of time restraint, let's move on. One of the immediate consequences of the president's announcement has been a scarcity of fuel, as we've witnessed today in major cities across the country with long queues at petrol stations. Why is this so, and what can the governments do immediately to alleviate the sufferings and make this product available and also discourage people from hoarding? How do we bring about calm to the country?
I mean, and that's the function of the NUPRC. There's no scarcity, so let me be clear about that.
Okay.
All what we find outside the artificial scarcity. This scarcity read its head over the weekend, even before inauguration. It was a clear signal from the marketers to the president-elect that, look, you need to speak about subsidies and you need to remove subsidies during your inauguration. So there's no scarcity. One. Two, the fuel in the various depots are fuel bought at the subsidized rate. And so what it means is that under no circumstance should the government allow any of the filling stations sell petrol at a non-subsidized rate. Because
but Tolu, how will the marketers recapitalize when the subsidy has been removed? How would they be able to purchase products?
There's nothing to recapitalize, Gbenga. All it means is what you have today, sell at the market value, which has been subsidized.
Okay.
When you run out of that stock, when you're importing new products, those new products will be sold at the market value. And let me also say, and maybe Nigerians will be happy with this price will go up at the national stage, but it's going to come down. Because if you look at part of the president's speech yesterday, he said the CBN, it was a direct instruction to CBN, go and establish a unified FX rate. Part of why we're having challenges in terms of cost of landing cost is the FX rate. And so anybody who clearly listens to President Asiwaju yesterday could see a correlation between, even though I said he didn't give physical palliatives, there were latent palliatives. So if CBN is able to achieve a unified FX rate, then trust me, prices will go down.
Okay.
Nobody ever subsidizes consumption.
Thank you very much.
Otherwise, what we're doing, we're funding the refineries in Netherlands and creating more jobs in Netherlands. We have to support this policy. It is painful in the short term, but in the long run, it's going to even out.
Okay, on that note, I'd like to say a big thank you to you, Tolu Aderemi, a partner at Perchstone and Graey. Thank you so much for your insights on this subject. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.